customer service is very much linked up to your marketing efforts and your sales efforts. And actually, in one of the scenarios I'm going to show you, I am going to be using Omnichannel to generate a lead, for example. So it's often your guys doing customer service who are going to generate new leads through next best actions, or maybe actually your contact center is all focused on outbound telesales calls and stuff. But before we get going, I better introduce myself. My name is Neil Parkhurst. Raz has given me a great introduction already. You can see me there. I'm the kind of cuddly grey looking one, if you can work out which one that is. I'm Microsoft MVP and certified trainer. I work a lot in contact center space and omnichannel and that kind of thing. So that's why I'm talking to you today. Please check out my blog. There's a lot of information there about omnichannel and these kind of technologies, as I'll mention as we progress. So I'm going to make this demo heavy today. So there's not a lot of slides. So there's not going to be a lot of theory, but it might be worth us just considering or the use case as to where omnichannel fits in terms of the business. So obviously it's contact center focused. Now, in these times of COVID and stuff, you're talking about something that's getting a more and more important place in the organizations. I mean, I've been working with one, for example, that's got stores, and those stores have obviously been closed, and therefore they've had to rely on web chat and other means to engage with their customers through the website and stuff, and have had to beef up those areas. So it's quite a topical kind of subject at the moment. Now, as I say, I've got a lot of content to go through today. I am confident I will not get through everything that I'd like to cover, unless Raz lets me ramble on for the whole morning, which I'm more than happy to do. But what I have given you is, sorry, there's a bit of background noise. It'll go away in a second. What I have given you is there's a link there to my blog. If you go on my blog and have a look at the Omnichannel section, there's kind of a collection of all the blog posts I've been doing, and there are some videos on there to do with setting up parts of Omnichannel and stuff. So if you'd like to dig deeper, there's some useful information on there for you, hopefully. Now, just one bit of theory before we get into actually demo, and I'll keep coming back to this concept. So Omnichannel, one of the key things in it really is about routing the right conversations from the right channels to the right agents. And we're going to see quite a complicated setup of this, hopefully. So I wanted to explain the concepts. So with Omnichannel, we have a number of channels, and I haven't even drawn them all on there. I kind of run out of space. So these are the ones I've actually got set up today, and time permitting, we'll demo as many of these as I can. So we get lots of different channels that our customers can engage with us on through these channels. And each channel that is aligned to what we call a work stream. Now, a work stream can have associated with it a set of conditions and routing logic. And ultimately then that chat that's coming in from whatever channel will end up being directed to a queue, and that queue is full of a number of agents. Now, this is where our capacity model comes in, because what we do is we say, well, each work stream is worth a number of points. So maybe a live web chat is 30 points, but maybe an SMS that has a slower response rate expected, maybe that's only worth 10 points. Each agent then, depending on their skill set or maybe the level of complexity of queries we expect them to deal with, will have a capacity, so that we can then work out who's the best agent for these conversations to go to. So who's got the most capacity. But we can also, as we'll see, we can also add skills-based routing onto that. So different agents have got different skills, and therefore position them well to handle different conversations coming through on different work streams from maybe different pages on your website would need a chat widget which would be targeted at agents with different skills. Maybe they were looking at one product set or another, and you want to make sure that
I just lost sound there.
Thank you, Cheryl. Yes, we have. So we have lost sound.
Can everybody hear me?
There, we can hear you now. Thanks.
Can you hear me again?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Thanks, Neil.
And you only just lost it, or do I need to recap anything?
No, we literally just lost it last few seconds.
Oh, okay. I've just had a notification. I've got bad network quality. That's not a good omen, is it? Let's hope it's not going to cause me any problems. Right. So I'm going to get into a demo, and we'll come back to this routing concept in a second and expand on some of this in the demo. So I'm going to try and cover as much as I can. The three things I've put at the top, I'm definitely going to cover, and that's web chat, virtual agents or bot integration, and also the common data service, so entity routing. I hope to give you a demonstration with all these working together, so true omnichannel, and how we can use that to generate leads in a potentially a marketing context. And then, time permitting, we'll look at some other channels. Now, if I'm going to run out of time, if there's in the bottom channels in terms of Facebook, Microsoft Teams, Twitter, or SMS, if there's any people would particularly like to see how you configure those, stick that in the chat, and we'll let Raz tell me which ones people are asking for the most, and I'll try and tailor what we're going to see based on what people would like to. So very quickly then, how do we configure Omnichannel for customer service to start with? So you can see I've gone into the Power Platform admin, and I've got my environments here, and I'm just going to go into the admin center. So the first time you ever do this, you need to make sure you've installed customer service. Now, if you've got a production in maybe some sandboxes and you want to test this out, one tip is just enable a customer service trial in that tenant, so you'd get another trial instance, and that will give you the capability then to configure Omnichannel. And all you do is you go to this Applications tab, you find Omnichannel for customer service. Mine's obviously already configured. You say manage on that, and you can add in your instances, not just the trial you've added in. You could then configure this to talk to your sandbox or your production instances, obviously as a trial, but if you wanted to then light it up in you can see I've got two instances here, and I've configured different channels. So to do this to start with, obviously you add an environment, but if I just show you the way mine looks, you basically just go through and say which ones do you want to add in and accept potentially whatever consent there is to actually light that channel up. You then save that, and the reason I'm not doing this live in the demo is you then go away for quite a long time whilst it provisions. It's not a quick process. It can take, well, in my experience, several hours. So, you know, kick it off, go away, leave it, and come back. It's quite a reliable process, but it just takes a chunk of time. So just be aware of that when you're setting it up. Once you've got that set up, what we end up with is two apps, and we'll be jumping backwards and forwards between these apps quite a bit in the demo. So we get an admin app, and then we get the Omnichannel for customer service app here. So the admin app is obviously for your administrators to configure it, and then this customer service one here, Omnichannel for customer service kind of hub, that's the one that your agents would be using, and we'll obviously have a look at that in a second. So I'll quickly show you the concept of setting up web chat, which is commonly going to be one you'll set up. So you've got the chat widgets here. I've created one earlier, so you just say you want a new chat widget. When you save this chat widget, it will generate for us a code snippet, and I'll come back and show you what we do with that code snippet in a minute. What I've then got is a growing number of options. That Microsoft are rolling out enhancements to Omnichannel incredibly fast, really, really fast. So almost every time I go in, there seems to be new options in here. But I can, for example, decide whether I want file attachments to be passed backwards and forwards from the agent and the customer, whether I want the customer to be able to download transcripts and all sorts of other things about the how the chat widget will behave. Even as far nowadays as saying, well, do I want to allow voice and video escalation from the chat? And I can define pre-chat surveys and all sorts of stuff. What we then do is we link to this work stream, or we create a work stream and link it. Now, this is where the capacity starts to come in. So our work stream, each chat is going to consume 30 points. And I'll show you the meaning of that in a minute. And again, we've got quite a few options we can configure on our work stream, and we'll come back and have a look at some of the skills attachments and some of the more complex stuff in a second. Each work stream is associated with a routing rule, and I've got a very simple one here. So you could have multiple routing rules with multiple conditions, and I've just created a condition here to show how it would look. But this condition is just always going to be met. So I'm always just going to this default queue, but you could have different queues of different sets of users that maybe are from chats from different locations on your website, or whether the customer's authenticated or not, and all sorts of things like that. I've got a default queue, and then what I've got is a number of agents in my queue. I've got myself and my cat and my dog. We've all got different capacity. So this is where we say, how many points can each agent deal with? Now, each agent could be in multiple queues that goes across multiple work streams, but each work stream is worth a number of points. So I can cope with a number of chats. So if a chat was worth, say, 20 points, what we'd be saying is I could do 10 concurrent chats, or any mixture of different things from different channels. Notice I've also got a virtual agent in here in this queue, and I want to come back to that later and show you kind of how we'd route to virtual agents and bots and stuff. So let's have a quick look at this basic setup working. Oh, sorry, there's one more thing I want to show you. So I'll show you what I did with that code snippet. So I took my code snippet, and I could do this into any website, but I've got a portal that I've spun up, and I've just spun this up as a bog standard customer service portal, but it could be bespoke. What I've done is there's a content snippet where you define your chat widget, and I've just pasted that code in we saw earlier. Now you can do it there, and what that's going to do is light up the web chat on all your pages. Your alternative approach is to go to individual pages that you've got, and you could say, which one did I edit? This one, I think it was. You can basically say, paste your widget in there. So I've got another chat widget we'll see later on, and I've just pasted that into my home page. So I've got a different chat widget on my home page to the rest of my portal. But hopefully you can get the idea that you just copy this code snippet into whatever website or portal you're using, and that lights up the chat within it. So here's my portal, and you can see I've got a chat widget. And I'm just going to start a chat to show you the kind of idea of the way the agent experience would work. Notice I've had an alert for Windows. So if the agent isn't actually looking at the chat and a chat comes in, we can enable notifications within Windows to give them a prompt. I'll just get rid of that. So if I go here to my agent experience, you can see I've got a chat coming in. I can accept or reject it, and you can alter the behavior of this. Also, after n seconds, it would, if I haven't accepted it, it would go back into the queue and find the next available agent that meets the criteria. So I'm going to accept this before it zips off. So I'm now into the chat widget. You can see I can potentially have agent scripts and run macros and things to help me identify who the customer is, maybe create cases and things. I've got this chat widget here, and I can obviously chat backwards and forwards. Now the actual chat, chat is chat once we're into it. I'm not going to spend a long time kind of demoing the fact that we can have a conversation backwards and forwards with the customer. There are some cool things in here though. So we've got things like real-time sentiment analysis. So if I put in some negative words, what we'll see here, we've got real-time sentiments analysis, so it's saying that it's negative. Now, from the agent's point of view, maybe that's a little bit gimmicky, because maybe the agent ought to be able to, have a bit of empathy and know that the customer's being a bit negative or positive. But what we can do is on a supervisor view, we could automatically send a supervisor a notification if a conversation gets to say very negative, and then the supervisor can monitor that conversation and maybe give the agent some guidance, or maybe even take over the conversation if they wanted to. The way these sessions work is quite cool. So I've got sessions, and I can, if I just show you, I'll search for the customer. If I press Control and click, that's opening me another tab within this session. And as an agent, I can then open multiple things. And if another chat comes in, as we'll see in a minute, we'll get another chat in here, another session in here. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to end this chat, but I'm going to leave this session open, and we'll see the sessions in as we move forward in more demo. So I'm just going to close this chat down because I've done with that. So that's a fairly simple chat widget. I've got a chat widget. I'm engaging with an agent, and that's it. Now, often when I've demoed this, that's kind of where I've stopped with the level of complexity. But when you start talking to real customers, the needs are actually a lot more complicated than that, on how the routing would work and the different options, and how we're going to work in hours and out of hours, and how we're going to integrate in with bots and things like that. So what I want to try and demonstrate is a scenario that's a lot more complicated, to give you, to show more channels, but also to give you a flavour of, potentially a more real world example. So in my example, I've got two start points. One is the live chat, which we've just seen, and the other is going to be a bot, and I'll show you that working. Now, I've actually got two concepts of the way we'd use a bot within our website to engage with customers. One I'd call a front end bot. So the customer would talk to the bot, maybe asking frequently asked questions and things, and the bot would escalate to a human if it can't answer the question. And that's what this bot would be. Each of these widgets is linked to a queue. Now, with the bot, I'm just going to put the bot into the queue, so that's going to route to the bot. The queuing can be a lot more complicated. So with live chat, what I'm going to have is my frontline agent. So, where most of my chat would go to start with, but then I might have another level of agent as my second line, if you like, who might be my more skilled agents. So what I can do is say, well, the chat's coming in, I'm going to route my frontline agents first, because that's the skill I want to go to. But if none of those are available, let's then go to the second line and start filling up the capacity. So you can see that I'm the frontline agent, I do most of the work, but my cat and the dog, they're the second line, and they would fill in any gaps that I can't handle. Then what I've got is a third level where if no agents are available at all, either because we're out of hours or just they're all busy, we're going to go to a bot. And this is what I describe as being a back-end bot. And the use case here is slightly different scenario. So commonly what we're going to do is a bit more of a guided process where the bot's going to say, what's your name, what's your email address, how can I help you? And then that would generate a message, which might be an entity, might be a lead, for example, in a sales scenario, that would then get routed. So here, my bot is going to call a Power Automate that's going to create me leads. So that's my back-end bot scenario. Now, as I mentioned, my front-end bot, if that runs out of steam, that could transfer into this work stream. So actually, my front-end bot could go to the frontline agents, to the second-line agents, and then even maybe ultimately to the bot just to take a message because there's no agents available. That lead, in turn, can go to another work stream, which is the entity routing concept. So I could then pop that entity in front of the next available agent. And in this scenario, I've finally gone quite simple and just said, well, just give it to my frontline agents. So I want to show you how all of that's set up and how we configure that. So we'll end up looking at a couple of different types of bots and also entity routing as well as web chat. So we'll look at some of the setup first, and then I'll have my fingers crossed and hopefully show you all of it working together. So let's look at the skills-based routing logic to start with. On my chat, for example, so here on my chat, I can go to the work stream, and on the work stream, I can attach skills that are needed. So in this scenario, I've said closest match, and you'll see I'd either do closest match or exact match. So closest match is going to find, the closest match. And I've defined a type of skill called support level. And basically I've added in here and said the support level ideally should be frontline support. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to look for frontline support first. If there was no agent for frontline support, because it's the closest match, it would go with the next skill up in the list. So in my scenario, it would be second line or whatever you'd called it. So you might have different levels of agent there. And ultimately, if then it can't find any second line, it would go to, well, just anybody that's in the queue, that regardless of the skill. Now, if I look at my agent, so let's have a look at, jump into my user record. What we see is an Omnichannel tab within our system user record. And if we look at Omnichannel, you can see varying settings. So I can see what queues I've been assigned to, but you can also see what skills I've got. Now, if you're familiar with products like Universal Resource Scheduling or Field Service, this is actually the same bookable resource entity and the same skills scenarios that we use for Field Service and other parts of Dynamics. So what I've got here is an agent that's set up, and if I look at the Omnichannel skills, I've got a number of skills. In terms of my support level, I'm a frontline support agent. And obviously, if I go and look at the cat and the dog setup, they've got support level, but it says second line support in there. And this rating value can be custom. So I've just dreamt up, I want to do it in terms of frontline and second line, but you could have any definition of characteristic or skill and any proficiency rating that you fancied having. So that's my skills. So that's how we're going to decide which agents to go to on top of the kind of routing I showed you already. I just wanted to jump in and show you my Power Virtual Agents. Now, I don't know whether you've looked at Power Virtual Agents. They're actually really simple to set up. Basically, you just define what topics you want the bot to respond to. So what were the keywords to get varying conversation threads going, and then you have an authoring canvas that lets define how that works, and it's dead simple to use, and I'll show you the concept. Now, this bot that I've called Skynet, I actually want this to escalate to a human. So what I do is in the settings, you say transfer to agent. Now, this is a one-off thing, and I've already done it, so I can't repeat this. But basically, I'll have Omnichannel offered to me as an option in here, and I'll click it, I'll connect to my particular instance, and then it'll give me this green banner saying it's successful. And that's all you have to do to then be able to connect this bot up with Omnichannel. Now, doing that process will effectively create me a user record in Omnichannel, and we'll have a look at how those users are used in a minute. So if you think of a bot really is just a user from an Omnichannel point of view and can be on queues and routed to in the same way as a human can be once it's set up. Now, let's have a quick look at some of the topics, just to show you a flavour. I've created this topic here called Omnichannel or USD. So it's a conversation thread that says, well, do you want to use Omnichannel for customer service, or would you rather use Unified Service Desk? And the bot would lead a customer through this set of questions. So what we get is a set of key phrases that might trigger this, and then we get this authoring canvas that I mentioned. Now, when this loads, I just want to quickly show you the concept of how we decide when to transfer, and we'll see this when it's working. So if I just try and reposition that on the screen, of course my screen's frozen. Okay, just going to refresh my browser because the screen's frozen on me. But basically great. What I've got here, maybe I should have waited. What I'd got there was different responses the bot could give. A little bit big now. Okay, I'm having a few technical problems with drawing this, but basically I define the questions, I define the responses the bot will give, and ultimately I can have an end conversation. Oh, it's letting me do it now, brilliant. I can have an end conversation. So here the conversation ends and just stops. In this scenario, though, I've asked 3 questions and the answer is yes, no, or unsure. If the customer says they're unsure, then the idea is it would then transfer to an agent, so that this is where the bot would just hand off to an agent. And what I can do is I can put a message to the agent, so the agent would see what the customer was unsure about to help them engage with the customer in a kind of effective way. Now I've got a second bot, so that's my front end bot. Whilst I'm in here, I want to show you my other bot, so another scenario of how we might want to use a bot. So here we'd got a bot that would ask you some questions and then would ultimately transfer to an agent. In this scenario, I want to work differently. I'm going to only transfer to the bot if no humans are available. And I want to use this bot really as kind of a message taker to say, what's your email address, etc. Do you want to leave a message? And capture that information for later use. So again, I've got a set of topics. So we'll say this, yes, I want to leave a message topic, because that's obviously the route I want to take. And all we do here is we prompt for varying questions and it puts the answers to these questions into these variables. So we've grabbed them. Now you can see it says identify. So there's different types of entities or attributes that we could collect with the bot. So where I say it's an email, it would actually validate it. And if somebody typed in an invalid email address, it would say, no, can you give me an actual email address? And even with the phone number, if I type in a number that's too short or too long or something, it would prompt the customer to give them the correct answer. What it then does is run an action, so a Power Automate, and it just passes those variables in. And if we quickly just have a look at the Power Automate, it's really simple. All this is going to do, if we just edit it, is from the Power Agent, Power Virtual Agent, here's the options that were passed in. So here's the inputs. And optionally at the end, I could return a result back to say, yeah, that worked or whatever, or some dynamic values. And then basically, I'm just creating a lead record. Now, in the interest of being completely transparent, what I then needed to do in this Power Automate was this lead record needs to get dropped on a queue to be then routed to my agents. What I ought to have done is mapped out in a production one to get this lead or case or whatever you'd created onto the right queue to then process it if you wanted to queue it. You might not, you might just be okay just to create the leads and then somebody would look at them from a standard Dynamics view. So that's my bot. So my bot is creating me an entity. So I just wanted to show you the concept of entity routing, the setup with that. So we've got another channel in here, entity records, and you can see I've set up 2 channels, one for leads and one for cases, so it links the entity. So I'll look at the lead. Now, what you do have to make sure you do is I went into the lead entity in my Power Platform and I said I enabled the lead for queues because I don't think that's done by default, whereas it was done by default with cases. So there have to be entities that can go on to queues. I can set some routing rules up that are exactly the same as we saw in the chat to route to a particular queue, and we link to a work stream, and that work stream then just governs how we'll pop these up in front of people. So the navigation's a little bit different for the entity channel, but the concept here of having a channel and a work stream and a queue is identical across all the different channels, and it's actually really straightforward to set up. One other thing that I did is I mentioned that I created the bots, so you can see I've got 2 bots that are old ones that expired on trial, so I've marked them as being dead. Here's my 2 bots that I've currently got. So I've got my back-end bot that's going to take the message and create leads that I've called Nobody Here, and my front-end bot that I've called Skynet for some reason. And these bots in turn can sit on queues, the same as we've seen. So this is the system user record for my bot, and you can see it's linked to the queues. And if we go to Omnichannel, here's the queue that it's on, and potentially it could have skills as well. Notice I've given the bot a crazy big capacity because the bot's capacity is basically infinite, could handle as many conversations as I throw at it, unlike a human who's got constraints on their capacity. So I've shown you quite a lot of theory on setup there, and I wanted to kind of show you the way this would work in a real world scenario. So here's my customer service agent. So this is me logged in. Now I've got a front line and a second line, so I need another agent. So here's another agent. I just want to, this will confuse me if I do it this way around. I'll do this way around. So this is me, the frontline agent. This is my second line agent. Now, if I got a lot of different windows going on here, because this is about as complicated as you could make this deliberately. So here's my portal. And what I want to try and show is how we're going to route between bots, frontline agents and second line agents, and see, a really complicated setup. So on my home page of my portal, you see I've got a different chat widget. So I'm going to chat with the Skynet bot. And initially what's going to load isn't a human, it's going to be the bot. All good demos have a pause. Yes, he has come to life, good. So, hi, I'm a virtual agent, how can I help you? And if you remember, I'd got these questions about should you use Omnichannel or Unified Service Desk? So I'm just going to say Omnichannel or USD is my question. And my bot's going to respond, selecting between these, can be confusing. How many agents do you have? Well, I've got quite a lot of agents. I'm going to say I've got more than 20. And then my bot will take me through a series of questions, helping me to decide which is the best product for me, and ultimately would link me to a place where I could subscribe to that product ultimately. But do I have complicated business processes? Well, what's complicated? I don't really understand this question. It's a bit ambiguous to me, so I'm unsure. I don't know what you mean by complex. What are you talking about? So I'm going to say unsure. Now the bot doesn't know what to do, so no problem. Let me transfer you to a human. This is now getting routed to my human agent. So I'm going to try and shrink this out of the way and show you what's going on. Now I've got two agents here. The agent it's gone to start with here is my frontline agent, and that's why it's come to me first, because even though I've got this chat and I've got some capacity being used, I'm available and have the best skill match. Now, if I wasn't available, it would have gone to my second line agent, and I can simulate that by saying, no, I don't want to do this. And it will now look for the next best option. And you can see now it's popping up on the other agent, so my dog's scenario. Now, obviously, this is a bit weird because we're all on the same computer, but you have to kind of imagine that this would have gone to another agent at another desk, obviously. Now, hopefully, this agent now accepts it and begins the chat conversation with the customer. But actually, in this scenario, I want to show you the third one, which is I might want to finally go to a bot that would collect a lead. So I'm going to say reject that. Now, the experience for the customer then, you can see I'm a virtual agent. The humans aren't available right now. Would you like to take a message? And I'll say, well, yes, please. And now the bot's going to start asking me questions. So what's your name? Email. What's your email address? But it's got to be a valid email. See, on the phone number, if I put a number that's too short, it's going to say, well, 999 can't possibly be your number. What's your actual number? Captures that. How can I help you? I would like to buy loads of stuff. They give a message, whatever the query is. And the bot would thank me and we'd come out. Now that's created the lead, and the lead would go into the routing model. Now, if everybody was busy, that lead would get routed once somebody comes online. I wasn't quick enough. Good. So what that did was that assigned the lead to me as a frontline agent. Now you can see here the lead is actually sat in my dashboard. So that way of routing is probably quite common. So I'd route that to somebody. They don't necessarily have to respond to it instantly. I've just got the pop-up to say it's there, and it's sat there in my list of conversations, and I could open that whenever I'm ready. So as a customer, I can then open that. As an agent, sorry, I can open that when I'm ready, and we can see that I'm working with the lead record. I haven't got any agent script on this one, so I'll just shrink that. And I could work with the lead. I've got the customer's phone number there. I could phone him back, have a conversation with him about what their issues were, and either qualify or disqualify this lead. So let's disqualify it. Just say I didn't win that one. Can't win them all. But you kind of get the idea. I'd progress that lead through whatever sales cycle I've then defined. Incidentally, notice now I've got 2 sessions open, so I've still got that original chat open, and I'm also now working with this lead. And this is really important for agents that are multitasking in a way of jumping around lots of work. I'm going to close this tab down, and we can see as an agent, it will refresh automatically, but I'm just trying to click refresh from a demo point of view to see it happen fast. That lead is now completed because I've either qualified or disqualified it. So it's moved from my items I should be working on to my closed things because I've finished with it. And I'm now ready to work on the next thing. So hopefully you can kind of see, we've seen a lot there, and I hope I've managed to get that across quite clearly. Now, Raz, has anybody put in the chat that they want to see particular channels? So we've got Twitter, SMS, Teams, and Facebook.
Hi there. So far, no one's actually provided a specific channel. So what you could do is just go with Facebook or Teams, because I think they are the most commonly used ones. Yeah, well, David Olay saying Teams. Yeah.
Teams. Okay, let's do Teams. Right. I was going to say Twitter or SMS because people can actually send me tweets and text messages, and we'll see how that goes. But let's have a look at Teams. So the use case for Teams, commonly we're going to be talking about internal conversations. So I did some work with a really large company that had got potentially thousands of employees, and they needed an internal help desk, and they wanted to offer that up over Teams, but they need exactly the same features with being able to talk to your customers and stuff. And Teams is incredibly easy to set up. I guess by the fact it's a Microsoft product. So here I am in Teams. Obviously I'm in this conversation at the same time, which is a bit strange, but it'll work. So to do this, you need to create an app. So the first thing you do is you go to the apps option down the bottom here, and I'm just try and move that widget out of the way. That's right in where I want it on the screen. Okay, I search in here for the App Studio, and if you've not got it installed, you just click on it and you install it. It's a dead simple process. So you go to Apps and you find the App Studio. Once you've got App Studio, it'll be there in your apps, and you can go to the App Studio. Good. Finally got that to move. In the App Studio, you go to this manifest editor and you say create new app, and you can see I've created one here. And all I've done in this really is I've given it a name, and it generates me an app ID, and I've put some icons on it and stuff. And you could spend longer doing this, but that's basically all I did. You're supposed to put links to privacy statements and stuff, and you can see I just put random links to parts of my blog just to get it to work, because they are kind of mandatory fields. But I generated an app. What I then do in a second is I'm going to come back to this bots option. So that's all I did to be able to create myself a Teams app. I then went into Omnichannel, and you can see we've got the Teams channel here. And I said I wanted to create a new Teams channel, and I just give it a name basically and link it to my Teams work stream. Now, when I save this record, it will generate me this bot ID, and I'll come back and show you what I do with that bot ID in a second. And from that point on, configuring the Teams work stream is exactly the same as configuring any other work stream. I could put skills on it and routing logic and everything else that I could have with any type of channel in Omnichannel. So I then go back to my Teams app and I create a bot. So I just say I want to add a bot, and all I've done is paste in that bot ID to the bot that I've created, and it's simple as that. So if you just edit this, you can see I've just created a bot, and literally all I did was paste that in and save it. So let's see what that looks like. So then what I get is, here's my help desk app. Now, I spent no time at all creating this. What you could do with this is have a chat channel, but you could do things like adding in links to intranets or support pages, or you could set up all sorts of wikis or whatever as tabs in here to help people gain support themselves. To show the idea, I just put a link into my to my blog just to show that you could get information. If we go back to the chat, you can see I've had conversations before, but I'm just going to start a chat. So I have a problem with my laptop. So I want to talk to the support guys, and then we go back into Omnichannel. What I should see is it pops up from Teams, and I can accept that, and you can see that I can then have a Teams conversation in exactly the same way as I would any other conversation. No problem. What model do you have? Incidentally, while I'm here, there's this concept of it's not coming up. I have quick replies, so I could define for my agent quick responses. So if you've got standard ways you want to say things, your agents can search those and just be able to key them in quickly. So you can see I'm then having the Teams conversation. I've got the same sentiment routing and everything's the same. Notice here it knew that it matched on the email address, so it knew who the customer was, so it popped that for me automatically. So I was already into the right customer record, and then I've defined whatever agent script I'd need to help resolve the internal questions that were coming from Teams. It's worth knowing these agent scripts are all obviously completely configurable, and I can have different agent scripts for different channels because I'll get potentially different types of problems through different channels, or often different services on different channels. So you can see I'm into a Teams conversation and we're just having a chat now. It's the same as anything else. So that's the Teams one. Teams channel, I guess because it's all Microsoft product, is incredibly easy to set up. Teams is currently in preview. I don't know whether you noticed that. And that does mean there are some limitations. So I don't believe I can swap attachments or images backwards and forwards, for example. And I don't think I can escalate a Teams conversation into a voice call just yet. So there are some features I'd like to see in here, but it's a preview version and hopefully more things will come in. So that's Teams. I'd quite like to show Twitter, unless anybody's got a burning desire for a particular channel. I'll set silence as being.
Yes, so Cheryl is saying yes, definitely. She would love to see Twitter.
Yeah. So Twitter, you have to set up a Twitter developer account, and there is a video on my blog or a blog post that explains this. So you go to developer.twitter.com. Now, to enable the Twitter API to be able to do this, so to be able to create apps, you have to apply to be a developer, and it felt like quite a complicated process to me to start with, because they do ask, unlike some of the other social channels, quite a lot of questions about what you want to use this for, and what type of people you'd be engaging with, and how are you engaging with people and stuff. But then I clicked submit on it, having completed all that, and I got a response back pretty much instantly saying that I qualified to be a developer. So I'm guessing there's actually some kind of artificial intelligence going on, because it was so quick. A human hadn't had a chance to review all my responses. So once you've done that, it's dead easy just to create an app. And if I just look at the details I get, basically, the concept of all these works very similar. So regardless of the channel, you end up with an API key and a secret, and that would, you have to put that into Omnichannel. Omnichannel will generate a callback URL, and that will have to go into the whatever service you're setting up, be it SMS, Twitter, or whatever. So you can see here where I've got the callback URL. That's come from my Omnichannel setup. So you can see it's got the name of my instance in there, and that gets generated for me. Now, this is, I believe, a live Twitter one. So if you did look for NP Dynamics Limited on Twitter and send them a direct message, I would get it. So we can see here, I've then gone in the admin, and I've gone into Twitter, and I've set up the admin, and a lot of these follow this. They're all slightly different screens, but it's a similar kind of concept. So I've put in my key and my secret to start with, save that. It then generated me the URL. I can then list what Twitter handles I've got. So I've just got this one, NP Dynamics Limited. And I've linked that to my Twitter work stream, and the work stream here works exactly the same. I think on the skills routing, I haven't put this in, so I'll put this in, which I ought to have done. I'm going to say exact match and routing, save that, and I just attach a skill, so my support level, and I want to go to frontline. So what I've just done there is create skills-based routing, but I did it slightly different to what I did previously, where I'd got frontline and second line. I want this to always go to frontline. So basically I'm saying that the agents who are going to pick up these tweets have to have frontline. Now, it might be worth, you know, if you're setting this up, if you do any changes like I've just done to the setup of a channel, typically that takes 15 minutes for it to sync into Omnichannel and to start working. So I'm hoping that this chat actually comes to me as the frontline agent. I think it will, because I'm available. You can see here I've got the presence, and I could, as an agent, say I'm away. You can even create custom ones, so my cat could say it's gone off on a cat nap. So I'm sat there waiting for a tweet to come in. So if I go to Twitter, and I just say I want to do, if I go to messages, I just want to send a message in. So if I searched for NP Dynamics, oops, sorry, if I said I wanted to do a new message and search for NP Dynamics, it should come up. Can you help me with a problem? You can tweet that or message that through Twitter. Back in Omnichannel, you can see a chat request has come in. I'm going to accept that. And you can see here as an agent, it's come from Twitter, so I can have the conversation. Importantly, it's all behaving in exactly the same kind of way as all the other channels would, but the agent can see that it's Twitter. Tell me about your problems. So you can be engaging with customers through Twitter, web chat, whatever, all through Omnichannel. Now, something that might be worth mentioning on this kind of concept, I think with different channels, people expect different kind of response times. So if I'm having a web chat conversation with somebody, for example, and I ask them a question, I expect the agent to respond pretty much instantly. if I was talking on, somebody is trying to talk to me. Who do you call when you are afraid of ghosts? Ghostbusters, of course. This is a live channel, and I would keep getting these messages from people until until I ran out of capacity. So what I was explaining was you can you'd expect a fast response on web chat, but on say Twitter or maybe SMS and some of the other platforms, you don't necessarily expect fast responses. So what we can do in the setup is we can define how long it is before a conversation terminates automatically, and it would stay in my work items until that threshold's been reached, so I could keep dipping in and out. But if after say 2 hours, 2 days, whatever the time limit I set has gone by, then what can happen is the conversation would drop out of my dashboard and would go back in the pot. So then it would get routed to the next available agent again. So that's how you can handle those long running conversations. Notice that Mornay here, he sent me another message. So it says 1. So I am getting indications as an agent as to how many messages are sat on which of these sessions. And I've got another one. Really great demo. Brilliant. And then we can switch back to others, and you can see that one disappeared. Now what's important about this as well, you can see that Bruce Wayne here at the top has got a red circle and an exclamation mark. That's telling me that's a negative conversation. So if I see the circle showing me that there's outstanding tweets or SMSs or whatever that I've not read, and it's gone red, that might be a nudge to me as an agent to go and look at that one, because the customers may be getting a bit frustrated because maybe I'm not getting back to them quick enough or whatever. So that's Twitter. I'm conscious I've got a bit of time left, but not masses. Has anybody got any questions they'd like me to address? I can't see the chat, I don't think, whereas you might need to do that.
There is a question by Davey saying, I can see how the agent gets engaged in the chat. Can you explain how the customer on Twitter engages in the chat as well?
So the customer, at the moment, Omnichannel is all about inbound. So in terms of the customer would always instigate the chat, be it on Twitter or your website. So basically all I did was go and send a message to NP Dynamics, that's the name of my company, and that triggered the start of the chat. Now, what we can't do at the moment with Omnichannel, and I say at the moment because it's in the pipeline, what I can't do as an agent is say pick up a case and then start a Twitter conversation with somebody. So I can't begin the conversation. It's always reliant on the customer beginning it. So it's an inbound service. Outbound is coming in the October wave, and I think it's going to go in preview next month. I think we're a few days away from having that scenario, and then I'd be able to send a tweet or an SMS to somebody and begin the conversation as well as receiving the conversation. So does that answer the question?
There's a follow-up question, is that does it only work with messages, not tweets?
Correct. Oh yeah, I see what you mean. So if you're looking at tweets, so things like Facebook posts or tweets and stuff, here what we're talking about are things that are open in kind of social media posts, and there might be posts on LinkedIn as well. That isn't typically where you're engaging directly with customer service agents or sales staff, because it's not a direct message that you're going to respond to. But you could look at varying social listening tools, and I think what you do then is, if you'd spotted something through your social listening tools that was needed somebody's attention, you could create a lead or a case or whatever entity you liked, and then route that to the agent so they could get somebody looking at it through that channel. So you'd have to put a bit of configuration around what is it I want to respond to on those. So it's not really about necessarily, so certainly the Twitter channel isn't about tweets, it's about Twitter messages, but you could do that social listening through other means.
And yep, so Davey's saying thanks, and Cheryl's saying perfect. There is a question by Coquelin who's asking, do you think Omnichannel could eventually replace USD?
So let me explain the current situation, and then I'll give you my view of where we might go. But that's just my view. We don't know where it might go. So currently, I wouldn't see that Omnichannel and USD are necessarily a direct replacement for each other. They've both got strengths and weaknesses. I think in particular, Unified Service Desk is great at the enterprise level stuff where I want a lot of automation or back-end system integration and stuff, or maybe bespoke telephony integration and stuff. It's quite good at that. But obviously, Omnichannel scores really highly on the routing and the ease of setup and in lots of areas. So for a lot of simpler scenarios, definitely I'd be using Omnichannel over USD today. There is still a place for USD. Now, the one caveat is what you can actually do is you can take Unified Service Desk and you could have this Omnichannel panel arrive in Unified Service Desk. So you could actually mix and match both worlds. I would suggest that you only want to go down the Unified Service Desk route for large enterprise stuff because it's a lot bigger a lot bigger project to get that up and running. There's a lot more effort involved in it than configuring Omnichannel. So I'm hoping I've showed that actually configuring Omnichannel is pretty easy and you can get up and running with it quicker. Unified Service Desk is a different beast. Will it eventually replace it? Well, it depends on what Microsoft put in the roadmap. So I don't think I'd ever say never. There is more and more features coming into Omnichannel with every release, and with every release, because there's more and more features, more capability, there has to be therefore more and more scenarios where you could easily use Omnichannel over Unified Service Desk. And if it's easier and it's a more simple configuration, why wouldn't you? So I know I'm hedging my bets a bit, so I wouldn't say it's necessarily a direct replacement. It will replace it in a lot of scenarios if I do that as the answer.
And a question by Davies asking, is it because of Omnichannel that the discontinuation of social engagement?
No, I don't think so, because social engagement was discontinued before Omnichannel started, I think. So I don't think the two are necessarily related, the two decisions. And Omnichannel, as I've explained, is more about your direct messaging, your web chat, where you're engaging directly with your customers rather than it being a social listening platform. So they are two different concepts, really. But when you get into them.
Great stuff. I believe that's the end of the questions. So I think that was perfect timing as well.
Excellent.
So we
That's unusual for me.
Cheers, Neil. Do you have a couple more minutes if you wanted to end on any final kind of notes or a wrap up or anything else that you wanted to cover? Oh,
well, I mean, I could cover Facebook and SMS and all sorts of stuff, but
oh no, yeah,
I run over then.
No, that's fantastic. So, do you have any final words or messages for everyone?
Yeah, just that I really would encourage people to go and give this a go, and particularly to start looking at the bots and stuff. I'm finding those incredibly powerful and easy to set up. Some quite complicated scenarios, as you've seen today. I deliberately made that a complex scenario, which is a real world example as opposed to a simple demo.
So just to wrap up, so once again, thanks again, Neil. Look, it's always a massive pleasure. And this was actually on short notice, by the way, everyone. So literally, I think it was only 2 days ago, wasn't it? It was 1 or 2 days ago. And so
hence why I haven't got many slides. It's all demo, but don't give that away.